Hey, I'm Shin. Do you ever feel like you don't know how to choose colors? Well, guess what? I don't either. So, let's do a random color challenge. Here are the rules. 1. I can only use the 5 colors generated by a random generator. 2. With the provided colors, I can play around with their values and saturation and blend the colors. 3. I can't change the artwork using color adjustment tools. 4. I can use every layer mode the art software provides. After all, it's perks of digital art. Big thanks to Draftly Show for being the inspiration for this video. The link is in the description. With that being said, let's start the challenge. Okay, here's the color generator website I'll be using. Now, let's start with our first color, dark blue. It's alright for a start, but it's only gonna go downhill from here. Okay, next, Miku. Okay. Cyan is a neighboring color of blue. So far, so good. Nothing drastic yet. Third one. This should be fine. Desaturated pink. Yeah, all of them so far are cold tones and should blend well. What's the next color gonna be? Okay. A very, very bright green. This should be fine since it's a close color to cyan. Let's continue for now. Last one. Purple is not bad. Okay, let's pin them up for now and start making something from them. Alright, so this is the color we have going on. A desaturated dark blue, cyan, desaturated pink, bright green, and dark purple. What a bunch of crazy balloonies we got here. It would be nice to have most of the original color, but to have some balance in terms of the colors, we need to play around with at least its value, since it's all desaturated dark or insanely saturated colors. We definitely need some light, soft colors to balance this out. So let's try to think of stuff associated with the color setting with mood, associated objects, and complementary colors. So like this, maybe? Thanks to Melanote for sponsoring this video. With this, I don't have to worry about that anymore. Melanote is a tool to help organize your creative projects, such as work for animation, manga, illustration, videos, and many, many more. In this case, I use the color search feature to put down the generated color and begin brainstorming and writing down my thoughts quickly utilizing the draw feature. Trying to see if I can even put them together in a cohesive way in the first place. I had a hard time creating a connecting point for the colors, as you can see by how chaotic the board looked, but here's what I got. Since the color provided is very cold, I decided on something modern and fantasy-like simultaneously. Maybe something related to space, a night sky, and maybe something magical like northern lights with the green and cyan, and maybe a rainbow effect, as putting the colors in a specific order does look kind of like a rainbow. I went to the drawing board and started coming up with a few ideas and putting them all up on a mood board using the template Melanote provided. Melanote is not only available on PCs, it also has an app that supports Android as well as iOS along with its unique functions. Me using an iPad, I was able to use the split screen feature to drag and drop my images to the software fast and easy. I can even pull images from Google. This helps me gather all my references in one place while finding more references simultaneously. After that, I started to circle out what I would like to include in my artwork while crossing out the others to get rid of. Eventually, a form of ideas began to take shape. Melanote also has over 100 templates for organizing your work, which is helpful for beginners. I even used one of the templates, the story template, to plan out this exact video that you are watching right now. Not only that, they also have a project sharing function where you can send a note to the client to view your work and vision, or work with other people on a note as editors. Best part about Melanote is that it's free! So what are you waiting for? Go check out using my link at melanote.com/shuenart in the description below to start Melanote today. With that being said, let's continue with the artwork, next being composition. I started by devising the character's pose. Taking references from the guitar pose I gathered from the mood board, I then played around with the values and saturation with colors to think up ideas for the background. I wanted to make the background a backlit situation, like a concert, using green and cyan as the primary colors since green is the brightest of the bunch, but that would hardly give place for other colors to shine. Circle lighting could do fine, as this brings more focus to the face area. It's also one of the cool features I like from my past ideas, but that also doesn't feel good. The color was too cold and it didn't have the vibe I was going for. I then tried out a scene on a balcony showing the galaxy-like sky or the neon city, using greens and dark blue while making the character warm by using pink and purple to differentiate the settings from the character. And I'm happy to say, this feels much better than what I was going for. Now, having decided on the composition, let's move on to the sketch. I first place the composition at the bottom of the layers, set it to almost transparent, and start to draw the concept on top of the layer. This helps me keep up with my initial composition without looking back and forth. At the same time, it helps me add detail and ideas to the initial composition. Drawing the character, starting from the anatomy, and adding clothes and hair along the way. During this point, I used the long hair to my advantage to create a composition flow. I started cleaning up the sketch by tracing it with a new layer, making sure it was easy to understand and added more defined features to the characters such as their eyes, hair, etc. I then move on to the flat colors. I first have the composition artwork on the side as a reference to keep track of the colors I have in mind, and begin to add a base color to the background along with blocking out the character in a new layer using the lasso tool to more easily differentiate the subject from the background. After that, I block out the parts of the subject in different layers and clip those to the base layer for things such as hair, eyes, clothes, and more. This way, I can change the colors of that specific area whenever I want without affecting other areas of the color. Due to cyan being the most exotic and unnatural color, we would want to add it in parts where it would stand out. So, I decided it could be the guitar. I then returned to the background and started playing with gradient using a mixture of green and cyan. This is the part where I feel that the value of the artwork is really poor. So, I changed it by adding more colors to her dress and using all the colors I had generated to create a rainbow effect with more depth and value, as well as making her hair and skin brighter by playing with its value and saturation to avoid making her blend into the background. Now that the colors are somewhat settled, let's move on to the next stage, shading. Using the darkest color, dark blue, I paint over the character by clipping the shading layer to the base layer. I then change the layer mode to multiply and lower the opacity until I feel it's just right. Deciding that the light source will be from above the sky, I erase the part of the shadow by visualizing where the light will hit the character. I then locked the multiply layer and incorporated more colors into the shadow, such as purple, the neighboring color of blue, and airbrushed it around areas that are closer to the light source. Next, wanting to make the character glow even more, I locked the sketch layer to start coloring the line art to a combination of green, purple, and cyan. Having a lighter line art can actually create the illusion that the subject is glowing, and in this particular case, can help differentiate the line art from the dark background. I then added an overlay layer to further enhance the color of the shadows. To balance the overwhelming pink around the skin, I added cyan to the shadow around the skin area. And since I want people to focus on the face and hair more, I added an add layer mode to her hair and skin to make it brighter, as people tend to look at the brightest part of the picture before anything else. Now that the character is done, I move back to the background, as it's looking kinda boring right now. I started to think of stuff to put as a background and foreground. Maybe sheet music can fly off with the wind, and we can use green and cyan for the background to represent the northern lights. But that doesn't make sense because she dresses so thinly and there's northern lights, so yeah, let's not go with that. But I'm stubborn. So, after some trials and errors, I decided on a composition that looked like this. A giant planet from the sky, taking inspiration from the mood board I made. I thought of a flowy fabric that kind of looks like the northern lights to substitute my needs for them. I added butterflies and flower petals to move along the fabric to further complement the flow of the composition. I also changed her hair to pink so that she could look warmer compared to her surroundings. Moving on to the most anticipated part of the video, rendering! I started with the face as per usual, cleaning up the eyelids and painting them to have structure and depth. I gave her light green eyes, making them look glowy and ethereal-like. I also incorporated pink into the pupil as a complementary color, and used even more pink to add glowing blushes and have brighter pink around the edge of the shadow as subsurface scattering. I then moved on to her dress. Wanting to have a butterfly dress effect, I made it flowy and magical by starting with her sleeves. I painted them in a twist motion and added color variation to the sleeves to further complement the theme of the whole dress. I then added striped highlights to make it look more detailed. This is also an excellent way to show the motion of the fabric interacting with the wind more clearly. I then did the same to her whole dress, refining the shadow line to capture its ruffles and overall shape, and define the layers of her skirt by drawing out the silhouette of her dress. After that, I started painting the shadows and eyedropping the colors of the dress to make them look a bit stripy, and began adding stripe highlights to the whole dress, only highlighting where the light can hit, and increasing the brightness according to the placement of the light source. I also made the layers of the dress a bit transparent to indicate the thin wings of a butterfly. Next, I moved on to the base. I originally wanted it to be a guitar, but that reminds me too much of a particular pink creature, so I switched it to a bass. Besides, it's easier to draw 4 strings than 6. I first blended the shadow, as this model type often has a slightly curved edge. Then, I began defining the bass features, such as highlighting the steel shrinks since metals are reflective. Now all that boring stuff is out of the way, let's move on to the star of the show, the hair. Since I had already sketched out the hair nicely and neatly, I hardly needed to do much rendering. Mostly cleaned up the sketch line and messy shadows and blended them until they were nice and smooth. Having a clear image at the main focus point is important because it will give the viewer a smooth experience when they look at simple, precise detail in contrast to the messy surroundings. Again, during this point, I used coloring techniques such as hue and substance scattering. For example, I added a bit of desaturated green or cyan to create a more dynamic shadow using the hue method. Or I painted saturated light pink around the edge of the shadow to make a glow effect. I also think of the hair in a geometric shape. As it folds, one side of the hair will look brighter than the other. Now, once the character is done, it's prop time! Starting with the flowing fabric, I have two different layers for the fabric folds. One behind the character and one in front. This way, I won't need to worry about accidentally overpainting certain parts of the character. Just like the skirt, I made them a bit transparent. This time, I was not trying to indicate butterfly wings, but to resemble the northern lights. Rendering the fabric, making it twists and turns, and adding stripy highlights. While adding the stripy detail, I used all the colors and increased their saturation and value to make it glow. I also placed the colors strategically, making cyan connect to green as they are neighboring colors, pink connects to green as pink is bright red, and red is complementary color to green. Green connects to purple as both complement each other, and they are often used in villain color palettes. Purple connects to blue, as again is the neighboring colors of purple. Yippee! Color theory. I then moved on to the planet in the background. Starting from making a circular shape, I aligned them with the initial sketch to make sure it's perfectly round. I then changed the color to the saturated pink and started to add details, basing it on the reference I have on my mood board. Then, I airbrushed a light pink around the edge and added in glow effect below the layers of the planet. After that, I felt that the left part of the artwork is kinda empty. So, I put some shooting stars placed diagonally to further complement the flow of the composition. I paint the shooting star with various colors, using a combination of pink, green, and cyan. As light is the origin of colors, without light, there's no color. And if you paid attention in science class, you would know that light uses subtractive primaries with a combination of red, green, and blue. The more you know. I then got sidetracked, feeling that the artwork was missing something, specifically its value. I played around with the character's sleeves. I thought purple is too close in value to her hair and background, so I cut the sleeves to make ruffles. Repainting them and thinking about their geometric shape. In this case, I tried to think of the ruffles pattern like a W or a zigzag motion, so I would paint one side brighter. To further make the sleeves fluffier, I added an additional transparent layer to the sleeves by drawing its outline on top of the original sleeves. Feeling that the arm looked empty, I added minor markings like a tattoo to her arm. I wrote 01 to indicate my first illustration based on a challenge, nothing special. But now that I'm writing the script, I realize this is the same looking 01 as Miku. Now I will forever be haunted that I might have accidentally drawn Miku with her hair down. But oh well. I then locked the tattoo layer to add all my colors, placing them like a rainbow and changing the layer to add layer mode to make it glow and stand out. With all that sudden change, here's a before and after. The value looks much better now, right? Well, now that it's done, I return to the props. Feeling that the background still feels kinda empty, I added another additional shooting star. This time, it doesn't show the star itself, but just the stream line. Again, making the stream transition through different colors, from green to pink, then cyan, and so on. I also tested out different layer modes for all the shooting stars, but decided not to as the colors are too far off from the original palette we are using. Next up is butterflies. To answer any concerns, no, we aren't going to use this wacky looking purple stuff as a base. This is just for composition purposes. So, I started a new layer and began to shape the silhouette using the lasso tool to plan out the placement of the butterfly. After that, I began to add detail to each individual butterfly, starting with the bottom right one. I added a little gradient to the butterfly in the center and began to draw the wings detail. How I draw the wings is fairly simple, as there's plenty of wing patterns to choose from. I do recommend looking at references to see which type you like. With that being said, I choose a butterfly pattern and minimize it to a much simpler design, adding a thick outline and thin lines to make the inner pattern. After that, I added a green outline to the butterfly to indicate the other side is hitting the light. I also added a little splash of cyan to the wings to make the color more dynamic. I basically did the same to the other butterfly. Still, for some, I changed its pattern just so we could have a more diverse and unique design for each butterfly. With the butterflies done, I'm happy to say it's the final stretch, the finishing touches. This is the part where I really pull and blend everything together. First adding outlines to the character, using greens to complement her surroundings. Then, I added more texture to the background using a texture brush that Procreate provided to add more detail and have some indication of clouds. And for fun stuff, sparkles! I first added sparkles around the reflective area, such as jewelry and metal material. I never mentioned this, but I do add colors to my sparkles. In this case, I added bright purple and green around it to make the whole piece more colorful. I also added my signature triangles. We can't forget those now, can we? Feeling that the color feels meh, I was in a challenging situation. As I previously stated in the rules, I can't adjust my color using the color adjustment tool. But what I can do though is pretty simple, using the layer modes. Feeling that the artwork looked a bit cold, I choose the warmest color, green, as it's the closest color to yellow. I then desaturated the color and painted it on a new canvas. Next, I began playing around with the layer modes and ended up choosing the lighter color layer mode, and played around with its opacity until I felt things were alright. And would you look at that? It looks like I'm cheating, but I'm not. I added more sparkles, colors, triangles, and even more colors, and I believe we are done. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video and found it helpful. Thank you to my patrons for supporting me. If you want to see the speed paints, PSD files, and more, feel free to go check it out. Your support is always appreciated. This artwork is already out on my social medias. Links are all in the description. And hey, if you like this video, maybe you'll also like my other videos. Comment down below if you want to see more of this type of challenges, and at the end, I challenge you to the random color challenge. Bye!